sit. This is Odie, and this is Odie's roadmap to success. The primary issue I was calling in to work with him is he is getting very persnickety with guests and people on walks. He used to be fine with kids, and now he's starting to bark at them and people on walks. He barks at sounds around the house. And in my estimation, it's really a result of him. He didn't really have a lot of rules. His guardian does a really good job of exercising. He probably could get exercise a little bit more, like before people come over or before the walk or things like that. But people always look at me like crazy when I say exercise before the walk, but it can really help. But I think this is a result of he thinks he's in charge of his human, but his human doesn't listen and respect him as authority figure. She doesn't see it that way, and that frustrates him, and that frustration causes stress, and the stress is causing him to act out. So we started out by talking about exercise. I'd like the guardian to get a retractable leash and go to her staircase, because we're in an apartment building, sit, show him you have a treat, throw it to the bottom of the stairs. When he runs down and gets it, come up with a word that means to go south, or we would go down and get it. And when he licks it up, say the command word, then call him back up, give him another treat, and say another word that means to go up. And the first time do it with an empty stomach until he no longer goes up and down. He's like, you're crazy, I'm not going down anymore. Count each down up as 1 and find out what his maximum number is. And then we exercise about a third to 3/4 of that maximum number. And then basically you'll kind of play around with the elements, and eventually you'll realize I have somebody coming over, they just texted me, I don't have time to walk him. We'll just take him to the stairs and maybe spend 3 minutes going up, down the stairs and bring him back in. Give him, if ideally we'd like him to have about 10 minutes to recover time before the person comes in the door. That's really going to help. Now, because he's reactive to people out who come over to visit, I would suggest that he's very determined. He's a terrier. I would suggest that the guardian, we don't want to do this forever, but we want to set him up for success. So I'd like to have the guardian start arranging to have a friend or two come by at least two a week. More would be even better. Neighbors, ideal if you can, because they're close by. And basically sit. Meet outside. So when they get here, just say, hey, when you're like a block away, text me. And then basically, what you can do is leave a little ramekin of treats like outside right outside the security deal or whatever. Just tell people, hey, when you come over, I'll leave a little dish of treats out there. Can you grab those? There'll be about 10 treats in there. Just put like one, start putting them on a sidewalk, 1 per square, and then go on this side or that side of the apartment building and sit down and just on the ground and have about 2 or 3 treats left. And so when he comes out, you lead him to the first one and the second one. After a while, he'll come and he knows exactly what's going on. Oh, I'm going to go get a bunch of treats. And then when he comes to the person, they're going to hold the treat out to their side like this. Front facing is confrontational. So we want him to get the treat from the side, and then he gets the treats, and oh, this is the deliverer of the treats. He'll feel good about that. And then I'd like the guardian to take just a quick walk around the building. Well, the video above talks about the martingale collar and how to use that. What I'd like the guardian to do is start the walk where she's holding a leash and the dog is in between the two people. The dog's on the left side, so the other person's gonna be on the right, on the other left. And eventually, when the dog's not paying attention, I want you to hand the leash to your handler. And make sure they put their hand through it. We don't want him to escape. He's got the martingale on. He won't even realize it at first. And then he continues walking around the block, and now eventually he looks up and they're the one correcting him. Now they can watch, or leading him. They can watch the video above so they know how to correct him and how to do all those fun things. Eventually it'd be nice if when you practice enough, first time that person comes over, you walk around the block with them. Maybe a second or third time, you go out there and you start walking, and before you get to the corner, you have handed them the leash, and then when you get to the corner, you stop walking and they continue, and they walk him around the block without you. So now they build a different relationship just with the dog. And the dog's like moving forward. The leash prevents him from kind of doing whatever he wants. He can't escape because the martingale is sized properly. And so they get practice at other people making them sit. And I don't have the video above, but I would have that person maybe with some more treats. And after you turn the corner and he can no longer see his guardian, ask him to sit. So they're going to be walking there, stop and hold up a treat and say sit. When he sits, give him the treat and say sit, and then continue walking. Make sure he's on the left side. Tell them to do that. After a while, he's just going to be used to when people come over to my house, they are here to, first of all, I get a bunch of treats, then they take me for a walk, and then they deliver treats every time I sit down. And so by the time you come back in the house, he's built a positive association, and there's a lot of distractions when the walk is very beneficial for him. I think if you can do that, try to do that 2 or more times a week for a month, you're going to see a substantial decrease. Chill. If that's a word you want to use for lay down. All right, so and then there are other things you can do for exercise, making him fetch, scent games. Google scent games; those are great ways to exercise him. And if you're doing fetch, like I said, we need to have some structure to it. So when he brings you the ball, make him drop it before you pick it up and throw it. Once he starts dropping it consistently, then make him drop and then make him sit before you pick it up and throw it. And then he drops and he sits, and then you pick it up and make him wait a second, then you throw it. So looking for ways to delay gratification and help him will help him develop some self-control, and it's going to be really important for him to develop self-control because that's kind of will really be like trickling across a glide across of everything that we're working on. All right, we also talked about rules. He really doesn't have a lot of rules. So one of the rules is he should not be allowed in the furniture for 30 days minimum, but it's probably going to be more realistic about 60 or 90 days. And then you can get those X mats, the letter X, M-A-T-S. They're about $11 a piece. You probably need 4 of them for here. And that way, if I get up to go to the bathroom, I pull it out from underneath, unfold it, put it here. It holds my space, and he gets out of practice of getting up on the couch because the higher a dog sits, the more rank or status they have. At the same time, we're going to have a dog bed. I'd probably put one next to your TV stand, one over there next to your workstation, and then leave the one in the kennel. And then basically, you're just going to toss those treats over there. He goes there and licks it up, and we say the word Jamaica or Honolulu or whatever the words are that we use. We come up with a unique word for each dog bed. That way we have more vocabulary. And the first way we do is I toss about 10 treats. I do this about 3 times a day. I toss 10 treats, and I would split these in half because he's a little guy. I want to make sure he gets a good figure. And when he licks it up, we're going to say the command word. Then for about 7 of the 10 treats, then he's not paying attention, throw one in there and leave it. Make sure to get the dog beds that are light cream, white, or gray, light gray. And then so everyone's, I smell chicken liver. And let him find it on his own. And when he finds it, then we say the word Jamaica or whatever the word is. So so I toss a treat, or I leave a treat, or I lead him over there and put him in a sit or a LAY, and then give him the treat and say the command word. And then remember, always say the command word after the treat goes in his mouth. These are to lure him to go there. After doing that, like by the time he gets the second day, he's already doing it. He'll start laying there on his own. When he does, pull out a treat and toss a treat to him, or go over there and give it to him. He's a one-eyed dog, so you want to have as good depth perception for throwing. But now I'm rewarded for going here. And so that'll help him be more comfortable giving up the couch. Other rules is he should not be allowed on the carpet here if anyone's eating food here. He should not be allowed within 7 feet, well, about 5 feet. This is close quarters. About 5 feet away from the table when you're eating food. Should not be allowed past the edge of the work island in the kitchen when we're preparing food. Also, he is a lazy eater. His guardian does what a lot of people do and leaves the food out all the time or doctors the food because we feel bad. His weight is good. He's not overweight or underweight. He's about right. But he can take up to an hour to eat. So eating is the most important activity for dogs. So what I like the guardian to do is put his food down. Don't allow him to eat it. If he goes towards it, use that hissing sound that I showed you. And so he's got to keep about a 5-foot boundary. And then you go get a chip or cracker or something you want to eat first. And you eat it in 5 more bites. It has to be a real thing and no coffee or smoothie. When you get done, hey buddy, then we're going to, when you get done, then you're going to invite him over and tap the bowl. And if he comes over and takes his first bite of food, say sushi or whatever the name is you want to assign for his command word. Remember to come up with funny command words. Hey buddy, what do you got going on down there? Yes, how about if I just give you a little massage here so people at home don't see you self-grooming down there. And so when he takes his first bite of food, you say the word sushi or piccata or whatever you want to say. And then when he gets done, he walks away. You pick up the bowl and dump any remaining food out of the bowl. Now, if he doesn't go to the bowl within about a minute, pick up the bowl and dump it without no guilt, because you gave him an opportunity. He's turning his nose up. This becomes oh, you want me to eat? By not eating, I retain control. No, I'm offering you the ability to eat. If you don't want to eat, that's fine. You don't eat it again until the next meal. If he goes longer than 3 days, call me. But usually by the second day, the dog kind of gets really hungry, and that's a motivator, and then they eat. Dogs eat near the rank, so that this way the human is controlling the food and eating in the first position, and he's eating when we tell him to. And it's not available all the time. If it's available all the time, it takes away his motivation to eat. This is a very important one for dogs, and it'll really help with the leader-follower dynamic. All right, so what other rules do we go over? You have to sit before we let you out the door. When we walk to the leash, you have to stay behind me. As soon as you move in front of me, I turn around and go sit down on the couch. Remember to practice that at times when you're not planning on taking him for a walk. So you're going to go through the whole leashing process without actually the culmination of a walk. So that will decrease his excitement level. Now, when you get to where the leash is, you tell him to sit. And if he sits within 3 seconds, you put the martingale collar on, and then you attach the leash, and then you go to the door, put your hand on the handle, and tell him to sit again because he's going to walk there. Tell him to sit. If he sits, then we open the door and go outside. If he doesn't sit when we tell him to sit, we don't attach the martingale. We don't attach the leash. we don't open the door. So he's got to do something for us, a small thing, before we're going to open the door for him. And that way we're setting him up for success. And like I say, he's going to be calm on the walk, and he's going to be easier to control. The martingale is going to help with that a lot. I've obviously made a buddy. He was quite upset when I first got here, but he's still a puppy, so this is not going to be as hard to fix for the guardian as it is for more of an established dog. All right, so that's eating, and look for ways to delay gratification like I talked about off camera. Now, if he is, we also talked about petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose is, right now the guardian probably pets him so much he doesn't have to ask for it, but a lot of dogs will come and nudge you or scratch or bark. Now, he doesn't demand attention by barking. If he does that and you pet him, then he's going to bark more in the future for it. So next time he barks for attention or nudges or whatever, give him a counter order. Tell him to sit. When he sits, pet him under his chin. Say the word sit and only the word sit. And you can pet him as long or as little you want to. You just have to pet him at least a little bit. Otherwise, he'll go to other things to get your attention. If he's already sitting, ask him to sit over here or ask him to lay down. After a while, he'll come and sit down to prepay for attention. When he does, make sure we do appreciate and recognize and reward that. And if you catch somebody petting without a purpose, we say paycheck, that person stops petting. After a while, he'll just automatically do it to prepay for attention. And every time you pet, and even if you want to pet your dog, make sure you ask him to do something first. And after a while, every time you pet your dog, it becomes a little micro dog training session that helps him respect you a little bit more as a leader, helps him feel more confident because he's earning his affection, and also helps him practice that behavior, which will make sitting outside on walks or near people more easier. Passive training is just waiting for him to do things on his own. So when he does this, maybe call this turtle. Now, turtle up, belly up. Now, if you're petting him and he's like, oh, this feels really good, man. Oh, man, why don't you just go ahead and do the underside too? That's okay. You can keep on petting him. But you start petting him and he goes like this and goes focused on the back, stop petting him. That's too submissive, and we don't want to enhance that. Remember, anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're specifically amplifying or rewarding. So when you have people come home, if he come to visit, if he's all excited and they pet him, they're going to make him more excited. So they should act like he's not even there. But again, practice having them meet you outside for about a month. After you rep that enough, you hopefully will get to the point where you won't have to do that anymore. You can have just people come in the house. And then I would give them a bunch of treats or get them one of these and have it full of treats and have it click on their belt. Every time he comes up, and have them tell him to sit and then give him the treat for sitting. Have him lay down and give him the treat for laying down. So now he's got to he's getting practiced at listening to other people giving him commands and having a benefit or reward for doing that, so he's more inclined to want to do so. Passive training is just like he had problems laying down. So every time he lays down on his own, pet him and say chill like I did earlier in the video, or crash, or whatever the word is you want to use. Every time he comes to you, pet him and say come. And make a list of those command words. So you're only saying come, not come here, Odie, here boy, or any of the rest of those things. And try to come up with funny command words for whenever possible. Dog bed, dog kennel, the same thing. I have a Dalmatian, I call it fire station for fire station. I have one of my puppy class instructors in law school, she calls it chambers, judges' chambers. So come up with something, I don't know what, there's a medical one that might be related, but come up with something that's for that. For the dog, going back to rules real quick, don't let him on the bed without an invitation. So get in your night uniform, whatever you wear, and then lay in the bed and read or do your ritual, whatever you're done. When you're ready, then you invite him up. If he gets up first, we're going to tell him to get down. And you can hiss at him when he's trying to come up there. And that way, eventually, he'll learn that I have to wait for permission to get, and it's her bed, and she's sharing it with me. Boy, am I lucky to have her sharing with me. I better be in my good manners. Right now, I think it's our bed, and it's not. Sorry, buddy. All right, let me see. What else did we go over? We went over a hand targeting exercise. I have videos for that on my website. Remember when you're doing that to chop close to his nose? Yes, I know. That's a high pitch. They hear a lot more of that siren than we hear. That's why they react to it. So remember when you're doing the targeting exercise, you're chopping, and you're going to only do it on his left side because obviously he only has one eye. And also make sure you trim that area around the eye really good so he has very good visual acuity from the one eye that he has. So we're going to chop, we're going to have a diagonal chop, and we're going to freeze our hand there. And once he touches his nose, we're going to put the treat there and say the word target when he licks it up. And first, if his nose is here, we're going to chop like this. Then eventually we're chopping here, here. He's got to lean further, and eventually he has to take a step and 2 steps. I can use this to manipulate my dog to a 360 or any direction I want, and they're happy to do it because they get that reward. Make sure you always freeze your hand when you chop it, and you always deliver from the other hand. Don't chop, pull it back, and put the treat here. Then they'll start going for this hand. I also went over a focus exercise, and the focus exercise worked really well. So remember, when you're doing that, within 1 week, you want to get to 15 seconds on that second movement. So have everybody comes over on a regular basis. There's a certain female that was involved when he got adopted. That person should do the focus exercise, as well as the boyfriend. So that way he gets used to focusing on anybody. So remember, we're going to go 1 second, 1 second when he looks up in his face, and Joel, move it away and just watch him intently. After a while, he'll pretty much just staring at you the whole time. Then we go to 2 seconds on the second movement, 3 seconds, and eventually that 15 seconds within 7 days. Next step is to practice out on your lanai here, outside your doorway or in the lobby when there's nobody else around. Go back to 1 second, 1 second, but you can move faster at that point. And gets to the point within 2 or 3 days where he can do a 15-second stay there and outside, but not with a lot of distractions. The last stage is when you're on a walk, there's nobody around, say focus, he looks up to you, focus, because he's on the left. So now you go this way. And then at first it's 1 step and then 2 steps, and eventually he's able to take 15 steps looking up at you. And that way, when you do pass somebody that you know he's going to be reactive to, you're gonna find the distance that he's going to start getting stiff, holding his breath, and we want to catch him before he explodes. And then give him the focus, he looks up at us, he's not thinking about that person anymore, and we're going like this. So as we walk past the person, the treat comes down, oh, he's asleep now. And then by the time we pop the treat in his mouth and say focus, and he's like, all right, I'm ready to bark at that person. Oh, they're already past us. So preemptively doing that would be really helpful. Let me see. What else do we go over that we want to go over? Remember, when he has behaviors or activities that he fails in, how can I take note of what it is, recreate that situation in the easiest version possible? And always try to break it down in individual steps. And if it's got 4 steps to the process, do the easiest version of it and just practice that first step over and over and over without going to step number 2. So you do it a bit out of context and make it easier for the dog to practice. Eventually the dog gets more and more comfortable with it. And once the dog's automatically doing it, then we go to step 2 and practice step 2 by itself over and over. We do all the individual steps until eventually the dog knows all the steps. Then we string them together in the easiest version possible. And then we work our way back up as his skill set gets better, his confidence increases. We make it a little bit more and more realistic and lifelike. And eventually we get back to the real world situation that he failed, but now we've taught him how to behave and we've helped him practice it, and then it's easy to do. Let me see. What else? I think that's about it. Is there anything else we want to go over? All right. So now if you have questions or problems with him, make sure, or the stuff stops working. There will be a time where some of the stuff stops working. Call me immediately. Don't text, or don't call me. I'm sorry, you can call me, certainly. But just keep doing what you're doing. Sometimes they remember the way that it used to be and they try to go back to that. So just stay the course. Usually they'll stop for a day, or not even a day, a little bit, and then they'll go back to it. But if I don't hear from you, I assume that means everything's going great. So make sure you call or text me if you have any questions. Now, if you do want to teach him to go, sit, lay down, up, and stand, if you go to doggoneproblems.com, if you're looking at a desktop, there's a section in the red bar called Dog Training Tips. If you're on the mobile, just click on the menu, click on Dog Training Tips. That's where this write-up will be and all the rest of my write-ups. And there's a search box on the right side of the page. You can type in sit, comma, down, comma, up. And I have a video that we teach for our puppy classes that goes through all of those commands. So this way you can find out how to teach your dog to do all those particular individual commands and practice. One last thing is dogs' confidence level has a correlation to how reactive they are. Confident dogs are able to brush things off and feel, and little things don't bother them. So he seems to be a pretty smart dog. What I'd like the guardian to do is go to YouTube. You can go to my website. I teach your dog to do a hurricane and all sorts of stuff as well. But go to YouTube or wherever it is and buy a DVD, How to Teach My Dog, and try to teach him a new trick or command once a week for 4 weeks, or excuse me, for 8 weeks. So that way you get 10 commands. On average, we find that, well, not on average, but we find that when dogs reach a tipping point of 10 or more commands that they know very well, then their confidence level reaches a certain saturation point that they don't react to other things the way they used to. So, don't make them super hard. Well, one of the ones I would definitely teach him is how to stay. His guardian mentioned at the very beginning of the session that he kind of paces around a little bit when she leaves and when he's not at daycare, or he won't eat his food. And those are 2 indicators of a dog that has separation anxiety. So what we want the dog to do is practice being alone. And this comes from because when they're puppies, they never practice being alone, and we have them, we're with them 24/7 because they're new and cute. Then we finally go to work, and it's probably the first time in that dog's life it's ever been alone. Well, what I like to do is teach them to stay. And first I stay for, and this is also a video again on my website, because a lot of people teach for distance and duration at the same time, makes it harder. I teach for distance or duration first, then for distance, then for distractions.
For dogs with separation anxiety, I have a supremely high success rate. I make the dog sit in the other room, and once we get to the point where we're distanced and out of sight, and then gradually elongate it. So he has practice being alone in the room in the easiest version possible, knowing that my human is also in the house, it hasn't left me, but it's not my visual presence. And so eventually elongate that longer periods of time and help him practice that. I would also probably have him practice being in the kennel with the door closed when you're here watching TV or doing things. Not all the time, but most of the time the kennel represents the end of fun, or not the end of fun, the kennel represents I'm about to be restrained and my human's about to abandon me. Well, let's help the dog practice being calm in there while the humans are here. And I actually like to do it. I have videos on my website, kennel, just search for kennel training, where I teach the dog to stay in the kennel with the door wide open. It doesn't get to come out. Here's a release word. This way the dog is developing, practicing self-control and respect for you as an authority figure. All right, well, Odie, I don't want to disturb you, but we're about done with this video, and I think everybody would like to say hi and see how cute you are. I'm going to reposition you a little bit. Come here, buddy. Oh, yes. Look how cute this guy is. This is Odie, the one-eyed terrier, and that doesn't slow him down a bit. And this is Odie's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you need it. Right, buddy?